My name is Kay, and I'm 31 years old. I never thought a single invitation could expose so many quiet truths. But the day I invited my family to my award ceremony was the day everything I'd swallowed for years finally began to surface. Because when I invited my family to my award ceremony, Dad laughed and typed back, "Just a lowly teacher," and my sister replied right after, "We're busy going to dinner." And Mom liked the message, a tiny blue thumbs up that somehow hurt more than the words. And I smiled at my phone and said out loud to no one, "That's fine," even though it wasn't, because I had spent 10 years teaching in a public school that everyone else forgot, grading papers at midnight, buying notebooks with my own money, staying after class with kids who had nowhere else to go. And I told myself that respect didn't have to come from blood, that meaning didn't need applause. Yet when that message came in, something old and familiar tightened in my chest. The same feeling I had when Dad used to introduce me at family gatherings as the teacher, while praising my sister's corporate promotions and my cousin's startup ideas. The same feeling from every holiday, when my work was reduced to jokes about long vacations and easy days. So I closed the app, put on my coat, and drove to the rehearsal alone, walking into the auditorium where the lights were warm and the stage smelled like fresh paint and nerves. And my principal shook my hand and said how proud the district was, how the award was being covered nationally, how my classroom innovation had gone viral without me even knowing. And I nodded politely, thinking how none of that would matter to the people who raised me, because to them I would always be small, always be safe to dismiss. And on the drive home, I replayed the texts again and again. Just a lowly teacher. We're busy going to dinner. Mom liked the message. And I practiced my smile in the rearview mirror, the same smile I'd learned to wear at 13, when Dad said teaching was a waste of potential, at 19, when he asked if I'd switch majors before it was too late, at 25, when my sister joked that I'd never afford a real house, and at 31, when I finally understood that I had been measuring my worth with a ruler they held, not me. So that night, I cooked pasta for one, ironed my blazer, and laid out the speech I might give if they asked me to say a few words, not because I expected applause, but because my students deserved to hear their stories told right. And as I set my alarm, I imagined my family at dinner, clinking glasses, scrolling through their phones, unaware that the same screen they used to dismiss me would soon show something else entirely. And I slept lightly, dreaming of chalk dust and camera lights, waking before dawn to a message from a colleague who said, "You ready to make history?" And I smiled again, this time because I was, even if no one else was watching yet. And the ceremony itself moved like a blur of sound and color, applause rising in waves as names were called, my heart beating loud enough to drown out doubt when mine echoed through the hall, the announcer reading my work, the innovation, the impact. And I stepped into the light thinking about the kids who taught me resilience, thinking about every lunch I skipped to tutor, every weekend workshop, every quiet thank you note tucked into a backpack. And I spoke plainly, honestly, because that's what teaching taught me. And when it ended, I didn't check my phone, not once. I let the moment exist without their permission. But later, back home, the house dark and calm, I finally looked, and there were no new messages from my family yet, just a notification from a friend saying, "Turn on the TV." And I laughed softly, not knowing why, turning it on anyway, the news anchor's voice filling the room, a banner scrolling across the bottom about educators changing lives. And somewhere across town, while they ate, Dad scrolled his phone and froze, because the screen showed my face, and his words echoed back at him, "What is this?" And the night held its breath as the truth he ignored began to speak. The broadcast cut to my name in bold letters beneath my face, the anchor saying it slowly, clearly, as if each syllable carried weight, and I imagined my parents' dining table going quiet, forks hovering mid-air, because this wasn't a local clip they could ignore, or a small-town mention they could explain away. This was national television, the kind Dad always respected, the kind my sister shared proudly when it featured someone else. And as the segment played, showing clips of my classroom, my students laughing, building, learning, my voice narrating about dignity and opportunity, I sat on my couch hugging a pillow, not smiling, not crying, just breathing, because for the first time, my story was being told without anyone shrinking it. And somewhere across town, Dad stared at his phone and said again, "What is this?" louder this time, while my sister leaned over his shoulder, recognition hitting her like cold water, and Mom's earlier like on that message suddenly felt very far away. And my phone finally started buzzing, one call after another, missed calls stacking up. But I didn't answer because I remembered how easily they had dismissed me hours earlier, how simple it was for them to say just a lowly teacher, how quick they were to choose dinner over my moment. And I needed them to sit with that silence a little longer, to fill the gap they'd created. So I let the segment finish, let the anchor call me an inspiration, let the screen fade to the next story, and only then did I stand, turn off the TV, and go to bed. Not out of spite, but out of peace, because I had nothing left to prove that night. The next morning, my phone felt heavy in my hand, messages stacked like bricks, Dad first, then Mom, then my sister, the tone shifting from confusion to pride to urgency. Dad writing how he had no say, Mom saying she always supported me, my sister sending links and screenshots, suddenly fluent in my success, and I read them all slowly, noticing how none of them mentioned the words from before, none of them said just a lowly teacher, none of them apologized for "we're busy going to dinner," and I realized that this was the moment I had once dreamed of, the moment when they would finally see me. Yet it felt different than I imagined, quieter, steadier, because their recognition no longer felt like oxygen, it felt optional. And when Dad finally called and I answered, his voice was careful, almost respectful. He said my name like he was testing it, and told me he'd seen me on TV, that he was proud, that he'd always known I'd do something big. And I closed my eyes, remembering all the years that sentence had been missing. And I said calmly, "When I invited you to my award ceremony, Dad, you laughed." And there was a pause, thick and uncomfortable, and he tried to explain it, to joke it away, but I didn't let him. I reminded him exactly what he typed, just a lowly teacher, and how my sister replied, "We're busy going to dinner," and Mom liked the message, and the silence on the other end was louder than any apology. And finally he said, "I didn't think it mattered." And that was the truth, bare and simple. He hadn't thought my work mattered until someone he respected confirmed it. And I told him gently but firmly that it had always mattered, long before cameras, long before applause, long before national TV, that it mattered to me and to the kids whose lives weren't theoretical. And when we hung up, I felt lighter, not because he understood completely, but because I had said it out loud. Over the next weeks, invitations came, interviews, speaking requests, and yes, family dinners suddenly rearranged to fit my schedule. But I moved carefully, protecting the part of me that had grown strong without them. And one evening, my sister admitted she'd been jealous, that calling me just a teacher was easier than admitting I'd chosen meaning over money. And Mom apologized quietly for that, like saying she didn't realize how it looked. And I accepted what felt real and let the rest go, because healing doesn't require forgetting, it requires clarity. And clarity was something teaching had given me in abundance.